Some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you anybody who doubts it.
Today on TLC Live, we'll analyze President Joe Biden's second State of the Union address. Joining us on that, Dr. Richard Sindelar from St. Thomas University and Mayra Flores, former Texas Republican Congresswoman and Americano media senior political contributor, they both also will talk about the Chinese spy balloon, the immigration situation that is going on right now in the border. A lot of things going on, a lot of headlines and a lot of breaking news.
Never a dull day.
Never a dull day, especially, did you watch the State of the Union last night?
I did, and I posted on my personal Facebook page that the Bolsheviks are alive and well.
Wow. So what was your...
Do you know what that means?
No. No, but it sounds good, as always.
So in the early 1900s, the Russians overthrew the crown, so to speak. And Stalin came with his ideas of a new economy that was more egalitarian and redistribute what little wealth Russia had to the peasants. It was the Bolshevik Revolution. And then that brought in Lenin, and now that brought in communism. So we saw how well that worked in Russia, right? So last night, Biden says big pharma, airlines, financial services, oil and gas, hotels in the service industry are out of control. They're charging too many fees. They're charging too much money. So what he proposed to do was tax the wealthy, first of all. He says there used to be 800 billionaires in the United States. Now there's 1,000. Even if we taxed all 1,000 billionaires at 100%, it would not make a dent in the national budget or in the national debt, number one. Number two, he said, American corporations have to pay taxes. American corporations are made up of shareholders. You and me and Mayra and everyone else. We pay taxes. So when Exxon does really, really well and we get a distribution of those dividends, we have to pay taxes on that. That's called unearned income. So the guy's completely out of control. He tried again the old Democrat strategy to make capitalism, free markets, and those that are successful in our economy the villains, and those that are not prepared and those that unfortunately are not participating in the economic process of this country will be getting paid. Now, the whole issue of Social Security is a red herring. Not one Republican is talking about eliminating Social Security and Medicare, which, by the way, I now benefit from.
I know.
So that ain't happening.
So, I'm not an expert in politics like you, but I'm a taxpayer, and I feel the pain.
Yep.
So, what I was watching that, I was like, okay, this guy lives in La La Land, and he lives in his own bubble because everything looks good for him, but
between
in this side...
Just let me tell you something. This country was founded on the principle that we didn't want any more monarchies, that we wanted a Republican form of government where the scheme of representation takes place. We really haven't had a Republican government for years, because if you add the years that Joe Biden has been on the government paycheck, John Kerry and Senate Majority Leader Mitchell have been on the government paycheck. That means they've never gotten a private sector paycheck. You know how many years that is? 147 years they have been on the government paycheck. They're the ones out of touch.
Okay, so with that note, let's bring our first guest, Dr. Richard Sindelar. He is from St. Thomas University. Welcome back, Dr. Sindelar. Thank you again for making the time and being with us. analyzing everything that is going on in politics. That is never a dull moment, as you said, Orlando.
So, Professor, we've shot down the balloon. We don't know really if it's a spy balloon. At first, I personally was giving the Chinese the benefit of the doubt. It could have been a weather balloon. As you know, there are thousands of them in the sky at any particular time, taking atmospheric pressures and measurements and whatnot, and it could have gone astray. However, when we realized there was another one in our hemisphere, in the southern hemisphere, I said, this is a little suspicious. So the administration decided to have the Department of Defense shoot it down. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Orlando, I didn't ever really think it wasn't a Chinese spy balloon, and one of the main reasons was if we could see it in the sky, then it wasn't a weather balloon. Those of us who live in Hurricane Alley know that a weather balloon's probably not much bigger than your studio, and the package underneath it is maybe the size of a small microwave. So if we've got 3 school buses up there, it's not a weather balloon. The other thing is, I hate to say this, but I mostly chuckled about it because this is a return to the old Cold War spy versus spy, intel gathering versus intel gathering. And it offers as many opportunities as it does threats. So I was actually happy that they let it float over the country and then shot it down over the ocean. I had suggested that to some people that they wait, and they actually did. The reason is, if you really understand the intelligence game, first of all, once you see it coming in over Alaska, you shut down stuff that they would otherwise read because they're looking for electronic emissions. You can even block photography if you want by putting camouflage up over it if you wish. But a satellite can take just as good a picture of a missile silo as that balloon could. So what you do is you turn it around. You read their emanations. You read their messages back to the satellite and back to Beijing. You learn their intentions, what they're looking for. It's important to know what they're focused on because then that knows what we need to mostly prepare a defense for. And you can even, and I don't know whether they did this, but I kind of suspect they might have. You can actually feed them false information, turn on some of those machines and deliberately have them emit wrong information to confuse the Chinese. So there's a under the table, black ops type game going on there. And I was kind of fascinated by it.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say. I agree with you. I think they were spying because, as you mentioned, if you want to see missile silos or Air Force bases, just go to Google Earth. You can zoom in in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and there's all the missiles. You can go to a couple of bases in Montana. There's all the missiles. So, we really don't have anything to hide. So I'm curious to find out that if they retrieve, the intelligence boxes, the buses, so to speak, to find out what was in those. I think if that was the strategy of the Biden administration and the military, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think, and bear in mind, we have two, and the reason the Chinese probably got upset about the shoot down is the second of these. The first is the information they're gathering. Well, they cannot gather information without creating what's called measurement and scientific intelligence, MASINT. So that are emanations from the balloon, whether it's radar, a photography click, whatever. We read all that. So we know the information it collected already because we captured that as it went back to Beijing. What we're missing that's in the ocean, and hopefully we'll find it, and this is what the Chinese are probably more upset about, is we can now assess their capabilities by examining the actual equipment. Is it very good equipment? Is it less good? If it's less good, then that means we're still ahead in the technological game to stay ahead of them. If they caught up with some very sophisticated stuff, then we need to double down on science and invention.
Well, you'll find out that probably, at least I'm assuming, most of the intel on that balloon was probably ours. I always tell my friends there is a movement across the states to bar the Chinese, among others, Russia, North Korea, Iran, from purchasing critical infrastructure in states. And in Texas, they've introduced a bill to ban the purchase of land that would be used for critical infrastructure, particularly electric generation, which has caused quite a dust up here. Because locally, Gene Wu, who's a state representative, the minute the bill was filed, was squealing like a pig going to market that it was racist. And I say to my friends that the the Communist Party of China does not understand public relations very well. Because if you're trying to acquire land as an asset to build wind or solar or even natural gas generated electricity through turbines, you probably don't want to be flying spy balloons over the country. And so, they quite don't understand the PR game and how to lobby individual legislatures.
Exactly. On the balloon itself, and why it came over right before Secretary Blinken was to go to China. On one level, I think, and this goes to the notion that, for instance, President Trump did not know about the 3 balloons as he claimed, and he probably did not. Because this sort of activity actually is below the pay level of presidents and prime ministers and the heads of government. It's authorized in other ways at a lower level, and it's expected to go on and continue. So the Chinese probably did not, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, people who put it up, probably did not clear it with Xi Jinping ahead of time. And quite frankly, being just your usual military guy, wasn't aware of the politics involved at all and put up a balloon as regular. However, I was talking to a former German diplomat yesterday, and we shared the idea that it is not unknown, going back to the attempt to overthrow Chairman Mao by the defense minister Lin Piao, for there to be a great tension in China from time to time between the People's Liberation Army, who wants more money to build to be even stronger and wants to be more aggressive, versus a Chinese Communist Party that's more political in its foreign dealings. And it is quite possible that the balloon was put up by the PLA to scotch the Blinken trip, not so much that they cared one way or another about the U.S. side of it, but they were kind of undermining Xi Jinping, who's having a lot of difficulty lately between COVID and economics and property values falling. They may be trying to undermine him and bring one of their guys to power. Now that's a stretchy line to take, but I think that's something that, as an old intel analyst, I would at least be spending time collecting information on, seeing if there might be something to that.
Yeah, and the good news is, I'm assuming, and I don't have any way of knowing this, but that for NORAD didn't fail. In other words, we were on top of this, right? From our military perspective, our military performed well.
We picked up on it when it came in over Alaska, and it's a little unclear in what's available to you and I whether or not we immediately knew it to be an intelligence balloon or not. My guess is, remember, we don't want them to know our capabilities. My guess is we knew right away exactly what it was, and then there was probably an early decision taken, actually, to try to exploit the balloon for the intelligence we could gather in a counterintelligence way, and let it fly. Because if you wanted to shoot it down, Alaska would offer a lot of open space where it wouldn't come down on top of people's.
Well, that's what I said. The population of of Wyoming, it's the third largest state in the nation. And their density is 1 person per every 6 square miles, so the chances of it banging somebody in the head was pretty slim. They could have shot it over Wyoming, but is it possible? First of all, what I want to know is, who's in this decision-making process? Is it the National Intelligence Agency? Is it the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Is it NORAD, the military, the Air Force? So who's charged with monitoring this and reporting to the executive branch?
Well, it would be the intelligence community as a whole. NORAD, as the alert system and defense system, they would take the lead in it. they would bring in agencies such as the National Security Agency, which can measure information.
Oh, we lost Dr. Sindelar.
Well,
But
that happens.
I know.
Maybe the Chinese were watching the program.
No kidding. I was just gonna say that, you know, the spy balloon is just one of the things that the theory that they're been watching us with cameras and with even on the TV's cameras that we have. Yeah. So
all right,
you're
so
back.
Carry on. We were just saying the Chinese may be watching our program, so. Go ahead with your thought. Finish your thought, Professor.
I think you're mute.
You're muted, Professor. If you can unmute yourself. But, you know, while he's figuring out the audio, in my mind, and we can ask former Congresswoman Flores, but, you know, all of what you folks see going in the airline industry, the disruption of the Federal Aviation Administration's ATC, the air traffic control system, the failures in communication, hospitals being held hostage with the patient information that are paying millions. You folks don't know this because, you know, the news is lazy and doesn't report this, but there are hospitals across the country that have paid millions of dollars to salvage their data because people can die. And so they hijack the data of hospitals. They hijack the electric grid system. So there's a lot going on. And it's just not the Chinese. It's, you know, the Russians are doing this as well. And that's dangerous. So I think the professor's having some issues. So let's go over to Mayra. Mayra, welcome. Good to see you. Congratulations on your two recent appointments. You spent a little time with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and now you're a senior analyst with Americano Media, which is quite a ways down. You know, you're doing a lot of traveling around the country, I'm sure, and showing up in a lot of places. But what did you make of the State of the Union?
Well, to be honest with you, clearly President Biden is not doing well, and that's why 37% of his fellow Democrats don't want him to run and seek for re-election. I wish he had a more caring family and friends that would advise him not to run for re-election because he is clearly not doing well. But I was glad to see the Republicans stand up to his lies. You know, it was time. They ran on lies on this midterm. They told our seniors that we would take away their Social Security, and our seniors were concerned because they already lived paycheck to paycheck. So they were worried that their Social Security was going to be taken away because of the lies that the Democrat Party spread. So I was so glad to see Republicans stand up and say, hey, we have never threatened to take Social Security away from hardworking Americans. This is their hard work money, and the only party that is honestly taking away Social Security with their policies is the Democrat Party, because it's their policies that are putting Social Security in danger.
You know, if the tables were turned and President Trump had said that some Democrats wanted to eliminate Social Security, the media the next day would be demanding that the White House provide proof of who that was. I bet you not one media outlet is going to ask the White House for proof of who these Republicans are that want to eliminate Social Security. Do you agree with that?
100%. And it's just so frustrating because that's exactly what they ran on this past midterm. They ran the entire time telling the American people that we were going to take away their Social Security, which was a complete lie. But I'm glad that the American people got to see, you know, right in front of their eyes that all this time they had lied to them.
Mayra, another thing, the border. I don't think he was not even close to be accurate of what is going on in the border. Apparently, I was saying he lives in La La Land. He's far from reality. Yeah. So tell us about that, and also what the latest decision of Governor Abbott on that.
And just to remind everybody, Congresswoman Mayra Flores' husband is a Border Patrol agent. Mayra has lived most of her life on the border. She is the daughter of Mexicans born in Mexico, as you know, the first Mexican-born naturalized U.S. citizen to attain a seat in the House of Representatives in Congress, just for background. So go ahead, Congresswoman.
Well, he really didn't talk much, right, about the border crisis because he doesn't want to, bring to the light, this crisis that continues to happen. We still have a humanitarian crisis. We still have thousands and thousands of people crossing illegally into our country, and these criminal organizations have taken complete control of the southern border. They're abusing women and children, taking thousands and thousands of dollars from them. And they're not only destroying the state of Tamaulipas and Mexico, but they're hurting this country as well. And it's why we push for legal immigration, because we care about immigrants. We don't want them to go through this trauma and this abuse. I'm not concerned about the women and children. I'm more concerned about the gotaways. And many times these are the most dangerous individuals. Our Border Patrol agents, like my husband, are overworked and they're not able to track down everyone. And we've had over 1 million gotaways. And many times we're talking about the most dangerous individuals: child sex traffickers, human traffickers, drug traffickers, people on the terror watch list, and previously convicted criminals as well. And these are people that are wanting to come to the United States and hurt Americans. And this should concern every American. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. These people are here to hurt us. And that is why it's so important to focus on border security.
Also, I want to read the latest article and the decision of Governor Greg Abbott that he said that Mike Banks is a recently retired Border Patrol agent and he will work with the Texas National Guard and state troopers to find ways to deter people from crossing the border illegally. So tell us about that and what is your thoughts?
I applaud our governor. He's just done such an amazing job trying to secure our borders. But of course, there's only so much he can do because we need the federal government to act, and if we continue this way, we're still going to continue having thousands and thousands of people coming to the United States illegally. There's only so much our governor can do. There's only so much Texas can do. We need the federal government to act. Because what we're seeing is just unprecedented. I've never seen anything like this before. Like I said, I'm a Border Patrol wife. I've never been worried about my husband's safety. I really did take his safety for granted. And these past 2 years had just been a nightmare for all of us. We're constantly concerned and worried about our men and women working every day at the border. And it's just not something that I wish on anyone.
Mayra, it's interesting to me how the Democrats have a short memory and forget things. Biden goes back to what they call the insurrection, right? The protest at the Capitol. Like the Democrats have never protested the Capitol, right? Do you remember Bill Ayers, who was the biggest supporter of President Obama in Illinois? He was a member of the Weather Underground and in the 60s bombed police barracks across the United States, killed people, and bombed the U.S. Senate. They forget that, right? And then last night, the media is all up in arms because a couple of Republican Congress members got up and told the president, you're lying on telling the American people that we want to cut Social Security. But how quickly they forget that when President Trump delivered a State of the Union, Nancy Pelosi, the greatest speaker in the history of the country, got up and ripped his speech up, right? And wouldn't shake hands. I mean, that's not very civil, right? I mean, bombing the U.S. Capitol, bombing police barracks, killing people, ripping up State of the Union speeches in front of the American and the world media. They forget, right?
They don't forget. They're wanting us to forget. That's why it's so important for us to continue speaking about this and their hypocrisy, because that's what they are, a bunch of hypocrites, hipócritas. They claim to care about the American people. They claim to care about women and immigrants. I mean, I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman, and all I got from them was hate.
Exactly.
And millions of dollars attacking attacking me with lies. They don't
Y,
care
y,
about immigrants
y,
nor the American people.
y hablando de hipócritas,
Hipócritas.
hipócritas, déjame decirte una cosa. So Congresswoman Flores says that the Democrats were hypocrites last night. But let me tell you, the height of hypocrisy was that he begins by bashing capitalism, free markets, airlines, pharma, right? Hotels, financial services, everything he can think of, he attacked, right? He's going to take away fees. He thinks hotels charge too much money. He's going to decide what's a resort, what's not a resort.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to tell airlines what services they're going to, what hotels can offer. I mean, this guy is incredible. But
I'm telling you, he lives in La La Land.
The height of hypocrisy comes when he says Big Pharma is charging $400, $500 for vials that cost them $15. And then a few paragraphs later into his speech, he says, isn't it amazing that we're now going to get out of the pandemic declaration of an emergency? We've done tremendous things. And, in other words, he's applauding Big Pharma for the rapidity and the speed by which they developed vaccines that has gotten us out of this thing. Now, I'm not vaccinated. I don't care if you get vaccinated. But, on the one hand, you can't tell the American people how demonic pharma is. And on the other hand, invite people who have been cured of cancer, who have stopped pandemics because of the research and development that pharma does. Who do you think develops these miracle drugs to cure cancer? Now they have potential cures for pancreatic cancer. I mean, it's unbelievable what pharma does. Is it expensive? Yes, but research and development isn't cheap. So that's the height of hypocrisy, in my opinion, right, Congresswoman?
You're absolutely right. But look, Biden just is so disconnected. He doesn't understand what the everyday American is actually going through. He's talking about vacationing and, hotel resorts when the everyday American right now is struggling to pay their mortgage, their rent.
Just buying eggs. Struggling just
right. I'm like
with something as simple as buying eggs and milk.
Right. I'm like, Joe, eggs are $10, Joe.
Yeah.
Get
No,
to
what's
it,
funny? What's funny though, he talks about his big win, right, which is the rehabilitation of the infrastructure of the United States, and he talks about how many bridges and tunnels they're going to rehab. Hell, no one can afford to put gas in the car to drive the bridge and the tunnel.
Thank you.
Correct.
So, what is your thoughts about? Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. What you were saying, Mayra?
No. Again, I was just speaking how hypocrites they are, and they'll never understand our struggle and what we go through. And the Biden administration, has really hurt the middle class, the hardworking middle class. We're the backbone of this country, and it's very heartbreaking to see what he's done to us.
Well, the polls show that, Mayra. The polls show that he's losing middle America, and yesterday's speech was to try to bring him back. It's to try to do an FDR, a Bolshevik revolution. The government is here to give you everything. And so we may have lost Mayra, but
we have Dr. Sindelar again.
Okay.
He's back.
He's back. Professor, I swear this has never happened. The Chinese are watching.
Can you guys
We were
hear me
talking
now,
about the State of the Union, so we want your thoughts about that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. The State of the Union. Before I go down that road, I know from following you guys' conversation that you have a particular political view. As I've told Orlando before in a previous conversation, I'm right down the middle. I was a diplomat who served presidents from Nixon to Clinton. I watched the State of the Union more as if I was an American diplomat watching, for instance, a British State of the Union, or in this case, a French diplomat watching our State of the Union. So my view was basically that President Biden, that was one of the better efforts he's made, but it was an opening I am campaigning speech. It really wasn't a State of the Union because he he spent a lot of time talking about what he was strongest on, and he spent a considerable amount of time, and I think he got the better half of it, looking at it as a foreign diplomat with Republicans over the Social Security back and forth that went on, quite frankly. But he mainly stayed away from the issues like the balloon and the border and immigration and those things that he's doing less well on.
Well, you're thank you for pointing out. You were kind of like members of the Supreme Court, just sat there with their hands on their lap and didn't applaud or didn't show any emotion. But let me tell you, after watching that speech, I went and had an eye examination because he kept saying, "Look, like we're blind." Okay, so I ran over to the ophthalmologist to get an eye examination, and what struck me, and we just had. I'm sorry.
That's the campaign speech. I mean,
right.
This is the campaign speech.
Right. But he also kept saying, "Let's finish the job." And I'm thinking to myself, Joe, you're about to complete half a century as a member of the U.S. Senate, and now Vice President of the United States and President, and you still haven't gotten the job done. I mean, when it's just laughable, in my opinion, when he talks about immigration, and then he turns right around and looks at the Republicans in the chamber and says, give us a bill. I mean, the Democrats were in control of the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Why didn't they fix it then? He's telling the American people, after almost 50 years in Washington, D.C., give me 4 more years.
Yeah, let's finish the job. Exactly.
No, you've had too long. You're fired.
Yeah. What job?
Exactly.
What job? Let's start with what job?
Well,
we have Mayra back also.
So, go ahead, Professor.
Yeah, I would just chime in again as a French diplomat watching from the outside and wondering why there can't be more bipartisanship when you have only 3% unemployment and we have less inflation than most of the rest of the world. In other words, we've come through the pandemic fairly healthy physically and fairly healthy economically, and I think we're breathing a sigh of relief, and I'm that middle class that Mayra was talking about. I'm doing just fine. I'm in the 97% that have a job, and so I think here again, looking at it again as a French diplomat, cold-heartedly, I think the night went more to the Democrats than the Republicans in the campaign sense, because the Republicans are still playing the old I'm in terrible shape game, and 97% of America may not have the income of Kerry, but they nevertheless are doing okay. So I thought, for instance, that the Republican rebuttal was just another rundown the Trump line, and the unfortunate thing about that for the Republican Party, Orlando, is that does real well in the primaries, and it does no good for the Republican Party. And I'd like to see a true bipartisan arrangement, and they keep losing the main elections because they don't move to the middle. The people don't like Biden, but they certainly also don't like Trump anymore either. And I think the Republicans need to find some more. Need to move a little from where they are on the right, a little more toward the center, and that's what Biden's trying to do on the Democratic side. He kind of dissed his progressives in recent, not necessarily in the State of the Union, but other recent comments. So that's my French take on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to have bipartisanship and any civility when you and the media that supports you, which is all of the mainstream media. Because if I watched ABC last night, which I rarely do, I should have watched, some just not ESPN, but C-SPAN. The analyst was, this is the greatest speech. This is I've seen just about every State of the Union speech. This was not a great speech. So it's hard to create bipartisanship, Professor, when you're constantly going after MAGA. He spent a whole, month attacking, a former president. Move away. If you want bipartisanship, stop that. It's like they went after the Tea Party. They go after MAGA. And of course, I agree. The Republicans always take the bait. We're reactionary. We all it's like those are things that we can improve within the Republican Party, but it's hard to build bipartisanship when you're doing what Biden was doing with the support of the media. I think, if you look at the national media, it's every day it's a story about, Trump's going to be indicted. Hell, we're going on 6 years. Millions
because they don't have anything else to talk about it.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of federal and state, in the case of New York, taxpayer money investigating Trump, and no one's indicted. How the hell long does it take to indict somebody?
The media miss him so much.
Well, the media has nothing to talk about,
but
so they talk about Trump.
The media missed him so much because he was feeding the media for 4 years.
It's crazy. And so, no, you can't build bipartisanship when you can't move away from that.
I want your thoughts. I want you and...
I did want to say one thing, and I'm being mean here a little bit, but you can't also. This was one of my particular takeaways that I was, just as an American in the middle, I was going, what in the heck is going on? President Biden says he wants to build bipartisanship, and the Republicans say the same thing, and they should. So he honors Mitch McConnell and makes McCarthy, who supposedly is the harsher of the two leaders, shakes his hand, smiles, and you do the political diplomatic thing where at least you find a way to get along, at least for a handshake. And Mitch would not stand up to be honored. I took that as an insult to the presidency in the State of the Union. So when you talk about bipartisanship, there are two sides to that. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene shouting in the back, that's kind of the State of the Union it has become. It's kind of a British tradition, so I didn't mind that so much as the disrespect that I Mitch showed. And that's my word, and I'll stand by that word in that particular case.
I don't disagree. I was very disappointed when Republicans got up and shouted to Obama, "You lied." That chamber and the delivery of remarks by the president of our country, because he is our president, is not good decorum. I agree with that. But again, sometimes Republicans take the bait. Professor, thank you for your time. It's always great to have you. We're going to jump back to Mayra for just a few minutes. Mayra, you got cut off, so finish your thoughts you were talking to us about.
Again.
We cannot hear you, Mayra.
Yeah, your internet's bad. All right.
Well,
we're almost out of time.
I want your guys' thoughts about Sarah Huckabee response.
Well, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with Professor Sindelar. I thought she did a fabulous job. I think she connected with women in this country.
Absolutely.
She talked about her struggle with defeating thyroid cancer. Mm-hmm. She talked about, the trauma that her family faced. I think she just connected with women very, very well. Very well. And so last night I posted that I love to make political predictions. The last political prediction I made did not come true. And I think I owe a former city council colleague lunch. I predicted that Lena Hidalgo would not come back to Harris County. She did.
She did. I know. She did.
Unfortunately for us.
Yeah.
My next prediction, which I posted last night on my personal Facebook page, is that Sarah Huckabee Sanders will be the first female president of the United States. And
That's exactly what I was
thinking. She
thinking.
is from Hope, Arkansas, which is the same town in Arkansas.
I just came back from Arkansas. Lovely state.
President Clinton is from. So with all due respect to Mrs. Clinton, who thought she was going to be the first female president of the United States, I think it'll be Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I just thought her performance was very good.
It was very, very sharp. I love it. And, I was watching her and I was exactly thinking the same that you're saying. I was not predicting it on Facebook or anything. I don't want that. But I was seeing her going that way, that direction.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We had a fabulous Leadership Latino class. I think we talked a little bit about that. It was our largest class. Again, we do what we do because of the generosity of those conservative Texans that watch us, that follow us, that are interested in what we're doing, and frankly are seeing our results. Our results are very positive, very dynamic. We're winning seats across the state of Texas. And not seats that, a lot of people get excited about. Congress and Texas Senate and U.S. Senate, and although we have some wins in that column, Mayra Flores, former Congresswoman who's just been on the show, is one of our former students at Leadership Latino in 2018.
Our second class. She was our second class.
Yep. So if you want to help us, go to our webpage, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and make a donation. I can't see that. She's showing me a telephone.
No, I'm showing you that, we have a lot of participation today.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to read the comments.
Okay, well, read the comments. So if you want to help us, make a donation. Go to our donation page. Keep up with us. Follow us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. And now you want to read Instagram. You want to read some of the comments.
Yes, you know why? Because since our people from Facebook changed the algorithm, so for a while, we haven't had people participating and engaging and commenting. And today, surprising, we have a lot of people. So I don't know, maybe the Chinese are watching, but also Facebook is allowing us.
By the way, I put that picture of, said, I got a closer, I have a house in Montana. And I said, I got a closer look of the balloon. And it was a meme, right? It was a bunch of colorful balloons, and it was Joe Biden's son hanging there. And I have been cut off. I've been put into Facebook jail because that violates the community standards of Farce Book, and Mr. Zuckerberg.
Okay, so last night I went to the kickoff campaign for one of the city council candidates that is our friend Roy Morales. And people that he was there is like asking me, so Orlando is in Montana, he's posting on Facebook. I said, well, don't believe everything that he posts on Facebook.
Well, I made a joke. But anyway, go to my personal Facebook page if you want to see my jokes. Okay, read your comments.
Look,
we have a lot of viewers today.
I love it. So we have Tony Rios. Tony, how are you? He's talking about Biden is a fool. And then Guzman D., did we get campaign financing from any Chinese entities? Also, we have Northwest San Antonio Prison. Mm-hmm. And who else? Emilio Santos Ramirez. We have Selena Espinosa Tafoya.
Selena always stays on top of things.
Yeah. We have, comments that say Sarah did an amazing job. Sarah would be amazing, a strong candidate, and hearts and kisses. We love Mayra Flores. We love Mayra Flores. The people saying we love Mayra Flores. Well, we love Mayra Flores.
Everybody loves Mayra Flores.
Yeah. So anyway,
thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for
we want to thank everybody
comments.
that participate and make comments and stay with us the entire hour. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning with us. Los vemos el próximo miércoles. And don't forget to go to our webpage, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com. Become a member, sign up for our newsletter, stay on top of all the calendar for the events that we're posting, and the upcoming Leadership Latino class. We don't know yet when and where it's going to be, but stay tuned, and thanks for your support.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. God
Nos
bless.
vemos el próximo miércoles. Chao, chao.